in August 2018, we went camping, and I got a mosquito bite, probably one of 20, and then about a week later, caught up with the symptoms and was diagnosed with a severe case of West Nile virus and encephalitis.
And when you say a severe case, he started to have symptoms here in Minnesota, and then had a trip planned for a convention out in Las Vegas. So he flew out to Las Vegas, and I had taken on a new job as a principal in St. Paul Public Schools, and it was opening week. And he wasn't feeling so good, and I noticed that because I was texting him about different things, and he was just like, I feel dizzy, I have a fever.
Dizzy, high fever, but didn't feel horribly alarmed.
Next thing you know, Maisie had fallen down 7 stairs, and last time she had fallen down the stairs, she had broken her wrist. Maisie's the 9-year-old with Angelman syndrome. And I texted him and I didn't get a reply. And to me, that was just really alarming. And so Monday morning, I am greeting my staff for the first time as Principal McBride, and it's opening week and have professional development, and his dad had called me and said, he just doesn't seem right. So I had stepped out of the room, and
my dad would ask me, you don't sound right, you're in and out of the conversation 20-30 seconds at a time, and then I was like, oh geez, and he said, Andy, I'm going to call you an ambulance. I'm like, okay, just agree to that, and I remember asking him if I had to get the door, because I didn't think I would be able to get the door, and he said security would be with, and that they would get the door open for me. And I remember the EMTs knock on the door, announce themselves with security, and that's the last I remember.
I called the emergency room. The doctor said, oh, he's lucid, he's making jokes, everything seems good. And yet Andy, when I talk about it, he doesn't remember. He doesn't remember having those conversations with the doctor. I got out there at about 9 p.m. that night. We got into an ICU room, and they started with the air. So he went from oxygen to an air mask to a BiPAP to intubation all within 4 hours. I just continued to talk to Andy as if he was there. He was in an induced coma, had congestive heart failure, kidney failure. And all through the moments, they kept telling me, like, this is bad. It's bad. And he's in critical condition. And finally, after about a week and a half, I had asked, do I need to call people in? And they said, you do. You need to call people. And that was that moment when I was like, this is real. And, Maisie has Angelman syndrome. And when we first got Maisie's diagnosis, I was always asking God, why? Like, why us? Why me? This isn't how I wanted motherhood to be. And I just kept thinking, I've done my time. God, like, why would you give us this on top of everything else? He had a fever of 107.
Yeah, 107 degree
the encephalitis, they didn't know.
Brain swelling and everything else. They had no idea how I was going to respond or remember, and they would tell her he might not remember you. It's very common with high fevers that the brain, the memory, the memory portion of it's one of the first to go. And I remember listening to the doctors telling her that, and they were just practicing, taking me off.
Speaking valve.
Speaking valve from the trach, and just working with, a few words and a few sentences. And then I remember them asking, do you want to tell your wife anything? Do you want to say?
Is there anything else you want to tell us?
Tell us, And I'm like, I said, I love you, baby Cakers. I knew I had to call her by her nickname because reading her name on the board or something like that, and under wife isn't, hi wife, it's like I knew it had to be something not in the room to let her know I was there. Mindy, a lot of times she'd come in, been 2 days, and she would say, gosh, you weren't able to do that. It'd be something like itching my ear, or
the little things.
Little things, and I'm like, oh my God, I brushed that off as not a very big thing, and then all of a sudden,
when he could pick his own nose, it was amazing because I was all done with picking his nose. Because he had full paralysis, so there was nothing. Like Andy said, like blinking his eyes was work. Sundays were my days that I would just, I don't know why I always forgot a Kleenex, but I do. And I would just be crying and crying because one of the songs, It's Well With My Soul. And it is. I knew that it had to be. I had to let it be and not eat me up. And God just gave me that strength. This journey has been unexplainable. The most difficult hurdle we've had in our marriage. We've been married 15 years in May. But we're conquering it with God's help. And I don't know what I'd do without that. Life always gives you challenges. You never know what that challenge is going to be. And to believe that everything's going to be okay. And to make sure that we know who wrote the next chapter. I have to just keep believing that God knows the next chapter for us. And there's a reason for it. We might not ever get to know why we're in this journey. But God has our hand and he's leading us through this path. And I often say, he carried me through part of that path. He lifted me when things were hard. And I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah.
So one of the things we're just truly blessed in this journey is every night we are thankful, we're grateful to God, and we pray for others around us and our continued strength. And even last night, Elsa said, we didn't get to pray. So we really lean into our faith instead of the fear of the unknowns. And that's been part of this journey, is letting our girls know that we're strong, that we've got this. Elsa often says, guess who's right next to us? And it's God. He's really in all of this.